My mom's death hit me like a ton of bricks. It wasn't the kind of thing you can prepare for, no matter how much you try to convince yourself that one day it'll happen. She had been sick for a while, but even knowing it was coming didn't make it any easier when it actually happened. It was a Tuesday when she passed, and the rain was falling heavily outside, as though the world itself was mourning with me. In the days that followed, everything felt empty. The house was too quiet, the memories too loud. I kept expecting her to walk into the room, to hear her voice calling me from the kitchen, or see her sitting in her chair, reading a book, the faint smell of coffee and perfume in the air. But she wasn't there. And with each passing day, the reality of her absence began to sink in. One afternoon, I found myself standing in her room, staring at her things. The room was exactly how it had been when she was still here. Her clothes hanging in the closet, her shoes lined up neatly on the floor. It was almost as if she had just stepped out for a moment, but I knew she wouldn't be back. Her absence was now permanent. It's strange, isn't it? How when someone dies, you're forced to sift through the remnants of their life, the things they left behind. I started to go through her belongings, old photos, keepsakes, clothes, and documents. As I moved through her things, it felt like an invasion. These were private pieces of her life. But at the same time, it felt like I needed to understand her in a way that I never had before. I came across a drawer in her desk that I had never noticed before. It was tucked away, hidden behind a pile of bills and old receipts. Inside, I found a small, worn, leather-bound diary. It was old, the edges frayed, the color of the cover faded. It didn't look like anything extraordinary, but something about it caught my eye. Felt like a secret, a part of her that I had never known about. I hesitated. Part of me thought I shouldn't open it. It was her diary, her private thoughts. But then I thought, why not? Maybe there was something in there that could help me understand her better. Maybe I could find answers to questions I never had the courage to ask when she was alive. So I opened it. The first few pages were nothing special. Routine entries about her day-to-day life, her work, the weather, and her hobbies. But as I kept reading, I began to notice a shift. Her writing became more emotional, more raw. I could feel her pain and confusion in the way her words flowed. One entry in particular stood out. I can't tell her. She won't understand. She's too young. Maybe one day. But not now. The guilt is eating me alive. But I have to protect her. I didn't know what to make of it. Didn't make sense. Why would she feel the need to protect me from something? What was she hiding? The more I read, the more I realized that there was so much about my mom that I never truly understood. She had been hiding something significant, and I didn't know what it was. I wanted to put the diary down, to close it and forget what I had just read. But I couldn't. The words tugged at my heart, and I couldn't stop myself from turning the page. As I continued to read, the entries became more unsettling. My mom's words were filled with guilt, sorrow, and a deep sense of regret. The woman I had always seen as strong and capable, the one who always had everything under control, was showing me a side of herself I never knew existed. She was battling something I hadn't been aware of. One entry in particular made my stomach churn. It was written about 5 years ago, before her health began to decline. I'm terrified. I can't do this anymore. I keep pretending to be okay, but I'm not. I'm so tired. Every day is a battle, and I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending. I had no idea she felt this way. My mom had always been the rock in our family. She was the one who took care of everything, the one who held us all together. But reading her words, I realized that behind that strong exterior, there was a woman who was struggling in ways I couldn't even imagine. It wasn't just the emotional struggles that surprised me. It was the fact that she had kept all of it hidden. She never let on to anyone that she was feeling this way. I had always thought that I could rely on her for everything. I thought she was invincible, that nothing could break her. But here I was, reading her own words and realizing how wrong I was. I turned the page, and that's when I found the next entry. It was dated just a few months after the last one, and this time the words were more desperate, more fragmented. I don't know how to tell her the truth. I've tried to keep it from her, but the guilt is unbearable. She deserves so much more than I've given her. I just hope she'll understand someday. I felt like someone had just punched me in the gut. What truth? What was she hiding from me? Why hadn't she told me? I thought about all the times she had been there for me, all the times I had turned to her for comfort, for advice. And yet, here she was, dealing with something on her own, something I had no idea about. The more I read, the more I realized how much I had missed. My mom was carrying a weight that I couldn't even fathom. And all along, she had been trying to protect me from it. She had been hiding her pain, her struggles, in an attempt to shield me from the reality of her own brokenness. The final entry in the diary was written just a few months before my mom passed away. I remember those last few months so clearly, the way she tried to put on a brave face, smiling even when I knew she was in pain. Her illness had taken a toll on her body, but her spirit was still strong. Or at least that's what I thought. It's funny how we can live with someone every day and still miss the things that they're hiding. The diary entry was dated shortly before she passed, a time when her health had started to decline rapidly. I could almost feel the weight of her exhaustion as I read the words. She had been battling so much, not just physically but emotionally, and she had kept so much of it to herself. In this entry there was no hiding, no pretending that everything was okay. The rawness of her feelings hit me harder than anything I had read so far. The entry began simply, but it quickly spiraled into something far more painful. I wish I could tell her everything, but I can't. She'll never forgive me. She's the best part of me, and I've failed her. I only hope she'll understand when she's older. I love her more than anything, but she deserves so much more than what I gave her. Those words crushed me. They were like a punch to the gut. For all my life, I had thought of my mom as a perfect, strong, and invincible woman. To read this entry was like uncovering an entirely new person, one who had been hiding behind a mask of strength for years. The woman I thought I knew had carried a heavy burden, one that she hadn't shared with me. And now, reading her words, I understood that there was so much more beneath the surface than I had ever imagined. I sat there for what felt like hours, rereading the entry over and over again, trying to understand what she meant. What had she failed me with? I wondered. What had she been hiding? The more I thought about it, the more questions I had. It seemed like there was an entire world of pain that she had carried in silence, and I had never known about it. I started thinking about all the times she had smiled through her pain, all the times she had reassured me when I was upset, the time she had been my rock. Had she been hiding her true self all along? I couldn't help but wonder how much of her life had been spent trying to protect me from the things she couldn't bear to say. It broke my heart to realize that she had been keeping so much from me, all because she didn't want me to see her vulnerability. She had wanted to protect me, but in doing so, she had left me in the dark about so many things. As I kept reading, I found more entries that reinforced the idea that she had been struggling with something deep inside. One entry in particular stood out, one where she spoke about the guilt she felt for not being the mother she thought I deserved. Every day, I think about how much I've failed her. I see all the other mothers, and I wonder if I've done enough. I know I haven't, but I just hope that she can forgive me for the things I couldn't give her, for the things I kept hidden from her. I want her to know that I love her more than anything in this world. But I fear she'll never understand. Reading those words, I felt an overwhelming sense of sorrow for my mom. It felt like she had been carrying this burden of guilt for so long, believing that she wasn't good enough for me, that she had somehow failed me. I had never once thought that. To me, she had always been everything, strong, loving, and perfect in her own way. But in her eyes, she had fallen short. And it broke my heart to realize that I had never been able to reassure her of how much she had meant to me, how much I appreciated everything she had done for me. Her words made me think back to my own childhood, to the moments when I felt like she was invincible. The countless nights she stayed up late to help me with homework, the way she always knew how to make everything better when I was upset, how she gave me everything I ever needed. I had always taken it for granted. I never once questioned how much she was giving of herself. But reading the diary, I saw things in a new light. My mom had been human. She had doubts, she had regrets, she had fears, just like everyone else. She wasn't perfect, and she didn't have all the answers. I think, in some ways, I had always seen her as someone who could never be hurt, someone who had everything figured out. But she didn't. And I wish I had known that sooner, so I could have told her how much I appreciated her, how much I loved her, and how much she had truly meant to me. The more I read, the more I realized that my mom had been carrying this burden of guilt for far too long. And I couldn't help but feel like I had failed her by not noticing, by not seeing the signs. I had been so wrapped up in my own life that I hadn't recognized her pain, her struggle. She had been trying so hard to shield me from it, but I was too blind to see what was happening. When I closed the diary for the final time, I felt a deep sense of grief. Not just for her death, but for all the things I never got to ask her. For all the things she never got to share with me. I felt like I was just beginning to understand her in a way that I never had before. It was heartbreaking, but it also brought me a sense of closure. I finally understood how deeply she loved me, and how much she had sacrificed to protect me. And even though she was gone, even though I would never get to ask her the questions that were now swirling in my mind, I knew one thing for sure. My mom had loved me more than anything in the world. And that was something I would carry with me forever.